This week on Merchants of Change, we've got Tad Gold. Tad played baseball and hockey for the Endicott College Gulls, followed by a professional career in the Baltimore Orioles organization. He transitioned to sales with Toast, a leading restaurant software platform, starting as a sales associate and working his way up to his current role as district sales manager. Here he is, Tad Gold.
I'm J.R. Butler, co-founder and CEO of The Shift Group, and you're listening to Merchants of Change. This is a podcast about transferring the skills and behaviors we acquire as athletes and military veterans into becoming a professional salesperson. Each week, we'll introduce you to a top performer who will help us understand how they became professional merchants of change.
What's up, kid? Today on the show we got Tad Gold. Tad, thanks for joining us, brother.
Thanks for having me.
I'm pumped to have you, man. Like I was saying before, we got a gull on the show, baseball and hockey, and a great pro baseball career we're gonna get into too. So give you a little context. We always have guests that are former athletes or veterans that have found success in sales. Our audience are, as you can imagine, a lot of folks kind of thinking about that transition to sales, folks that have made it. And we get a lot of people that are in sales as well, because they get to learn a lot from our guests and our conversation. So we kind of go in the order. We talk a little bit about your sports career, talk about your transition, and then we kind of end it with some good nuggets around, sales things, sales tactics, skills, mindset, stuff that's helped you in your career. Sound like a good plan?
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Awesome. So two-sport athletes. So this might be a hard question. I played football, hockey, and baseball in high school, but only hockey in college. But I love baseball. I think I miss it more than any other sport. So this is a broad question. I'm interested to hear how you answer it. If I were to ask you what your favorite memories of your sports career are, where does your mind go?
Can I give more than one?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, luckily, transitioning in college hockey was just club hockey for me, so it did give me some time. So we'll probably focus on baseball. Hockey was always my favorite sport, though, growing up. So sort of, I guess, the opposite of you. Definitely something that I miss the most. I guess the thing that sticks out most, we'll start with a college memory. Winning our first conference championship. So I went to Endicott, and we weren't a perennial powerhouse in baseball. It was sort of an up and coming program, and there was this team, Western New England, that was always like top of the mountain. Yeah, exactly. Winnow now, but yeah, Winnick at the time. So they were top dog. And we lost to them my freshman and sophomore year in the conference tournament, and then junior year we beat them at their place 12-3 to win the conference, to make it into the first round of the regional. So that's the first memory that sticks out to me as because that was like the camaraderie, all the boys together, the party after. We finally beat Winnick. It was just it was storybook ending there. So that's number one. Number two is more of a individual story. So I played for a summer ball team on the Vineyard Collegiate Summer Baseball League, similar to the Cape League, but it was called the Futures League. I was the only kid from the Vineyard actually on the team. The rest of them, I was pretty lucky to be a part of that. The inaugural team in 2011, and then in 2013 we actually won the championship of the Futures League. So 2014, they were having a ring ceremony for the championship for the 2013 team, and they actually were doing like a Tad Gold appreciation night, because I was the only Islander and I was there for 3 seasons. So they were handing out towels with my name on it, TG3, initials, number. June 6th was the date. So I'm standing on the field about to throw out the first pitch. We're getting our rings. I got a bunch of my buddies there from the year before, and I get a phone call from my college baseball coach. He's like, "Dude, congratulations." I'm like, "What? What's going on?" He's like, "You just got drafted by the Orioles.
What?
Orioles just took you in the 35th round." And my father's walking in. I'm crying. My sister's there. My mom was like, that was one of the best moments of my life to just be there on Tad Gold night and getting the call that I'm drafted by the Orioles. Um,
Oh,
that was the peak for
dude,
sure.
I just got goosebumps, dude. That is awesome. That is unbelievable. So you got to tell your dad?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
I'm on the phone. He's walking in. I'm like, Dad. He's crying. It was really cool.
oh my God. I'm getting like a little pit in my stomach from that. That's incredible. So like pretty good run, dude, all things considered. And I heard you were in the Sports Center top 10. So the fact that that didn't even make your top memories, that's a good sign of your career. But I have to ask about that. How'd you get on the Sports Center top 10?
That was the highlight of the pro career. I hit one home run, made it on Sports Center, and then see you later. um,
What was the home run situation that got it on the top 10?
so the home run wasn't a top 10 moment. The home run was it was just one career home run in my pro career. Um, but the catch, it was, we were in Carolina, and the situation doesn't really matter, but it's still a cool situation. It was bases loaded. There were two outs. I was playing right field, and we were playing. It was lefty up. We were playing him to pull a little bit, or no, we were playing him oppo. So we were playing him to take the ball the other way. So I'm like playing off the line, and he turns on one, and puts one like on the warning track. So I just went heads down and ran after it and sort of closed my eyes, laid out, made a catch, and slid for 5-10 feet afterwards. Popped up. Um, I was fired up. I had no business sort of being at the level I was at. So it was just like sort of a validating moment for me to make that catch, and it was
Those by the way, those catches, those are literally my favorite Sports Center highlights is the diving sliding catches. So that's sick.
nice. Once in a while, it circulates around Slack
Uh,
when something cool happens to me and my team. Like one of my buddies from when I first started at Toast is like shares the YouTube clip. So
I love it. I love it. I want to get into the two sports, and I'm going to start with this question. So, like, we always ask, like, how would your teammates describe you? And what I want you to do with your answer is like, tell me how your baseball teammates would describe you versus your hockey teammates. Is there a difference?
probably not. Um, I mean, I'd like to think like gritty would be a word that they used to describe me. Like I wasn't pretty at anything I did, but I just like found a way to get the job done by being an athlete. I would say athlete is another word that they would use. Like just figured out a way to get it done.
Yep.
Speed was something that I always had in baseball, but that was kind of it. Like I didn't really have a ton of power. I hit for contact. I was good at defense, but I just like figured out a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Same thing in hockey. I didn't have the hardest shot. I like didn't have much handle, but I was like a decent facilitator. I was always in the right place and just found ways to make things happen. Um, I would also say like positivity or like a positive attitude is something that they would say about me, maybe to a fault. Um, I'd like to think I wasn't that annoying cheerleader who was always like
Yeah.
clapping it up, but maybe an element of that too.
Yeah. So I think I just came up with a T-shirt idea. By the way, gritty, not pretty. Like
That's good.
that's got a hook to it right there. And
That's good.
and you also just like uncovered my my only. I've finally figured out my golf game, and that all starts with your swing thought. And my only swing thought now is be an athlete. So like I don't think about anything else except I just get above the ball and I'm like be an athlete, be an athlete. It's the only thing I think about. So I love that.
That's good.
That's great. Now, I imagine like club hockey aside, like you still had you had to get a handle around time management in college, huh?
Yeah. Um, it kept me busy. It kept me structured. It kept me out of trouble. There wasn't a weekend that I didn't have something for baseball or for hockey, and
Yep.
it it kept me on track, right? Like that was my outlet. That's what I looked forward to. That was my reason for being in class, was to get the reward of being able to go to practice and
Totally.
being able to play those games.
100%.
So
Have you been up to the new Ray Bork Arena at Endicott?
it's sick.
I
Yeah.
know. I know. Ray was my high school hockey coach, so I love that they named a rink after him. It's
No
awesome.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Good
Uh,
guy. I've never met him. He must
best
be a good
guy.
guy if they named a rink after him.
Oh yeah, best guy ever. I mean, listen, there's plenty of rinks out there that are named after assholes, but Ray Bork is not one of them. He's the best. He is the best. Um, so you're playing two sports up on the North Shore. You went. You obviously you played professionally at the baseball. When did let's talk a little bit about the transition. When did the transition start to leak into your head, and what was going on at that time? How were you feeling about it?
Yeah. So I didn't know that I wanted to be in sales when I got released. I was just like, man, my life sucks now. What am I going to do? I got to get a real job. Baseball is all I ever have known. I never really thought that I would make it to the bigs. Like, I just maybe that was the wrong mindset for me. But when it ended, sort of, went back home and was trying to think about what was really next. I got a job with that same summer team, the collegiate summer ball team, the Sharks. Not really a real job. I was the assistant GM, making like $200 a week, maybe, living at home. All my buddies who were doing well were basically in tech sales in Boston,
Yep.
and they're idiots. So I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Um, so my wife got her graduated Northeastern with her master's. She was going to move back to the vineyard. She didn't really have much there. Ended up with a job in what her internship was in, which was she was in criminology up in Middlesex Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
So she had a job. We decided to move to Boston when I didn't have a job. I just started throwing my resume around to um, different tech companies looking for a BDR role. And it was really my friends who were successful in it, and we were like-minded, and
Yeah.
they talked about it. I was always picking their brain about what they enjoyed about it, why they were good at it. Could they see me in it, right? What are some traits that some of the best people have?
Nice.
And based on their feedback, it really got me excited about becoming a BDR. So threw my resume out to a bunch of different places. Toast was actually the only place that I got an offer from.
Well, great company, dude. Nothing wrong with that.
I got
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah, you did. Well, no, none of the big influencers on LinkedIn that made their money at great companies ever want to admit. But I always think back. I grew up obviously in Metro West and in Marlboro area, Central Mass. So like big EMC contingent out there, and there was this famous sign that they used to have on the EMC sales floor that like when they were making a ton of money, the sales reps were like selling storage at list like before the dot-com bust, and the sign, the founder put it up on the floor, and it said, "It's the product, stupid." Like, you can work as hard as you want, you can do everything right, have the right mindset. At the end of the day, if you don't have a great product, there's a limit to your success. So luck is part of it, whether people want to admit it or not. I certainly feel that way about my career.
No question, no question. So one of the most important things for me when I was looking for a company was opportunity for growth
Yeah,
and equity compensation in some
totally.
capacity.
Yeah,
A company that was going to be public. And I thought I was so smart at the time trying to vet these things out. And it did come down to, in a lot of ways, luck. No,
yeah.
no doubt. But I was chasing equity comp for sure.
That's awesome. So you got into a few interviews. Toast made the offer. Did your buddies, were they able to help you? Like, because I think a big part for guys like you that are coming from like a completely different space, and I'm sure playing summer ball, playing two sports during the year. I was the same way. Like, I didn't get out of school with a bunch of internships to point at or a bunch of like corporate experience. So like I had to learn how to tell my story as like somebody who just competed in sports my whole life about why I was a good fit. Do you, looking back, do you feel like you did a good job of that, or like do you feel like there was a little bit of a gap there that now you could go in and just like crush it?
It's a great question. Yeah, there was definitely a gap.
Yeah,
I was at I don't know why I think about the questions that I asked in interviews, and I was asking like company level questions when I should have been like asking more sales, maybe specific questions, like, "Oh, what's your churn rate?" Right? I thought that was a great question to ask as a BDR. Like, what a if somebody asked me that question, even in a AE interview, I'd be like, "What are they? What a weird question." Um, so yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were able to help like with interview prep and the right things to say and talk about what motivates you and being money motivated and some of those pieces.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, absolutely. Looking back on the way that I answered some of those questions and how I interviewed, uh, it was so green, so green.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Quick story: one of my friends actually cut his teeth selling makeup
Wow.
for $20 a bag, going door to door to like salons, and that was his first role out of school, and he crushed it. And now he's in tech sales doing well, but that was his first role out of college, and I'm like, I don't know how you did that. I never could have done it, but
I like, I'll tell you, dude, if when we meet kids that come into our program and they've like done like Cutco or solar or like some other like, door knocking type of like role, like it sucks. Don't get me wrong. And I'm glad that they found us so they don't have to do that forever. But it is an unbelievable way to like get some calluses from a sales perspective.
you want to talk about gritty, not pretty?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's the
Well,
sales
well, if
equivalent.
you're selling makeup, you're getting
Yeah,
gritty. You get pretty.
yes, yeah.
Uh,
He's a 22-year-old guy selling makeup to like 30, 40, 50-year-old women, I don't out of the back of his car.
well, if he was handsome, I'm sure he did a good job.
He's not.
Dude, you don't see like a lot of longer runs at companies anymore. And I always think like people should at least try to find somewhere they can stick around for like 4 to 6 years, like you have at Toast, right? And the gap. Sometimes the gap is like sometimes people hit a ceiling and there's no chance to grow. But you've been really growing since you've got there. Why and how do you continue to get promoted? What do you think is driving that growth in your career?
Um, I've always felt so green. I've just always, no matter how long I've been in a seat or how good I've gotten at one particular role I've been at, I've just felt so new. And I think it's that mindset that's helped me continue to get better and not get complacent in a particular role. And I think that's what's carried me through the 3 or 4 promotions I've gotten in my time here. The other thing that's helped me really stay is Toast has changed so much in 6 years. So while I'm at the same place, it really doesn't feel like it. We've evolved so much. The product's changed, the process has changed. We've gone from Landmark Center being our headquarters to a WeWork space in right by South Station to now working full remote. There's just been so much that's changed, and there's still so much opportunity for growth, both personally and company growth here, that I'm just really excited about the future of Toast. I think the sky's the limit, and we're just scratching the surface.
That's awesome. I mean, listen, dude, like the beginner's mindset is what you're talking about. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's I don't want to say it's unique to athletes, but I think athletes have it pretty inherently. It's this combination of confidence, like humility and confidence. And when I say that, I mean we practice like we're the worst player in the world, but when we're on the game, like we're on the field, we approach it like we're the best player in the world. And then as soon as you're done, it's like, all right, I could have done all of this shit better, and I should have, and next time I'm going to, right? Like that mindset. If you continue to have that, it's going to continue to serve you in your career.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, even now, me, like I feel like I am a beginner as an entrepreneur and a CEO, but like I think we wouldn't have gotten to where we are if I approached this like I know everything. So that's awesome. What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think? Just like taking a step back, looking at from a 30,000 foot overview, what are the skills and traits that you developed growing up in baseball and hockey that have helped you the most? Do you think in your career?
First one that comes to mind, that's obvious, that I think everybody talks about, is the competition aspect of it.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, Wanting to be the best. I think there's an element of teamwork that plays into that too, like wanting to be the best in a healthy and professional way. Like, you're on a team with somebody, you're competing with them, but they're also a teammate of yours, and it's very similar in sales. At least here, I'm lucky enough to be in a sales org that's very collaborative. So the competition piece, I would also say that the teamwork piece is huge. Um, there's another, I don't know if this is necessarily a trait, but I've been thinking a lot about why athletes in particular are good at sales. And you just put it really well. Um, I think the other piece to that is just like the mechanics of what an athlete does versus like what a sales professional does. There's so much translatable skill sets. Like, when you're, as an athlete, you practice for a week to
Yeah.
prepare for the game. And then when
Yeah.
you're in that game, you're dialed in and you're ready to go. And it's that all of that preparation that you bring into that actual game itself. Those mechanics translate into sales so well. We're
Totally.
always listening to calls, and there's so much coaching that goes into it, and like debriefing on demos and discoveries. And then you're using that information on the demo or on the quote review, and like on when it's game time, it's game time. And I
Yeah.
just think that those mechanics are so translatable from athletics to sales.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of bucket that all into coachability generally, right? Like this
Yeah,
idea of like, every opportunity is an opportunity to learn, right? You either win a deal or you learn. Like there's no you lose obviously, but when you lose, that's actually when you learn the most and when you can really use it to get better, especially early on in your career, you start to learn a lot of stuff. Like, I remember early in my career, my biggest challenge was happy years. I thought every single customer loved me and our product, and I thought every single customer was going to buy, right? So that's sometimes you got to learn the hard way, dude.
that's common. Especially for somebody that's likable, for somebody who's like, who thinks that sales is all about building relationships and making
Yeah,
friends. And that's what I feel like a lot of people think initially about sales.
yeah.
Um, I think that's very common.
No,
The
and
happy years.
listen, I think people do buy from people. Like you can't be an idiot and a jerk, but like that's not why people give you $1 million. That's for sure not. Like that's not that's not how it works. Like you gotta earn it. You gotta earn their trust. You gotta really understand their business and show them that you're trying to help them achieve whatever they're trying to achieve with whatever solution you have. 100%. So well said. Um, I bet you get these calls, Tad. A senior calls you from Endicott and is like, "Hey, Tad, I saw after you played baseball, you got into sales. What's like before you're giving them advice about like how to go get a job and what kind of company to get into, which we'll talk about. How do you make sure that kid might not be a fit for sales and maybe he or she just thinks it's the relationship stuff. Like how are you kind of helping them uncover whether or not this is the right path?
Mhm. Yeah, well, first of all, I'd tell them that they're an idiot for wanting to get into sales. Uh, no, not at all. Like, I want to do some discovery. I want to learn about them a little bit more, and ask like, why? Why do you want to be in sales? What do
Totally.
you what do you know about sales? What are the biases that you're bringing in? Like, what do you think sales actually is? Um, I'll go back to something that I said before. It's like, if you're likable, if you're outgoing, if you're somebody that's good at having conversations and getting people to like you, other people will probably tell you at some point in your life, you'd be great at sales. You should get into sales. Same with like, somebody that loves to argue. Oh, you'd be a great lawyer, but there's probably so much more that goes into being a great lawyer than just being good at arguing. And
Oh
there's so
yeah.
much more that goes into sales than being a great communicator and
Yeah.
being likable and being outgoing. So I'd want to get a baseline first about what their understanding is of sales. And I'd want to share some of my experiences and like what kind of sales, I guess, would be another question that I ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I actually have a friend who lives down in Florida who's trying to transition into sales, and I think that he will be great for a lot of reasons. My first, maybe not my first, but one thing I want him to do is like meet somebody who's a manager in sales. Go out and shadow somebody. Go out and see what their day to day looks like. See if you can put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Probably a long-winded way. I don't know if I answered that entirely, but
No, that
that's
was
where my
that.
brain goes.
No, I mean, you started with exactly where you should, which is why. Like, why do you want to do
Mm,
it, right? Like, let's see what they think they're actually signing up for. Because, being likable, building relationships, hanging out with people, that's not what you get. That's not what the money's for. That's what I always say. Like, that's the fun part. Like, if that's all sales was, everyone would do it. It's all the other stuff that you need to make sure that they're ready. Because, like, to get to that point, you got to get kicked in the teeth about 99 times to have that one good engagement with someone. You know what I mean?
fair. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot more about being a consultant for somebody and being a trusted advisor for
Yeah.
people than I think the outside world that doesn't understand sales as much really realizes.
Oh yeah, 100%. We've already talked about this. You got really lucky on the first company you picked. How are you guiding that kid to think about their first company? What are the characteristics?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, First is like somewhere you can see yourself. Did you like the people that you interviewed with? Are you going to be going into an office? Can you see yourself in there? Can you see yourself surrounded by those people and learning from some of those people that you've already interacted with
Yep.
throughout whatever knowledge you have on that? Are you selling something to somebody a buyer that you might be able to connect with? For me, I'm selling to restaurant owners, which are mom and pop places, and I've worked at plenty of restaurants. I know restaurant owners. I know that they don't accept calendar invites or use their email, but I can relate to those people. I'm not trying to sell to somebody who's in IT security that I might not necessarily have any common ground with. Um, so I would ask like what's a segment? Why do you like? Is it a product that you understand that you can articulate? But also, is it a place that you can see yourself in a group of people that you could see yourself interacting with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as somebody who got into data center infrastructure for my first job as a sociology major with a minor in art history and sign language and never owned a computer, I tend to lean like a little more towards the people side because I do think like that's foundationally like they're gonna set you up from like a mindset, processes, systems, and habits that like I think as you get further along in your career, you definitely want to start thinking about that persona you're calling the product. But like initially, like if you can get around the right people, I always say try to find a leader you can admire because if you admire someone, then you're going to emulate them. Right. And if it's somebody that's good, that's a good thing. Right. If you get around a leader that you emulate that isn't good, that could put you in the wrong direction. Same thing in sports, really.
So you'd say like doesn't necessarily matter like the product that you're selling or the buyer that you're selling into. It's more the leadership that you're trying to surround yourself with.
Yeah, but this is I want to caveat this very specifically like your first like 12 to 24 months, right? Like I think, and if you want to make like a long-term play like you did, then yeah, then the product matters a little bit more, of course. But I think initially, you know, just because like let's face it, right? If you actually think about a 23-year-old, 24-year-old kid that gets out of college, how many technologies or products out there can they have any relation to whatsoever, right? Like
I mean,
it's going to be hard to find. It's going to kind of limit your choices a little bit.
I told the story about my buddy who sold makeup for his first job out of college, right?
Yeah,
Like that's he
yeah,
didn't understand that. So it's a good point. It's like at the end of the day, you're selling a widget. So if you can
totally.
just try to figure out what a good sales process looks like and surround yourself with a strong leader.
Yeah, and then you can find the right widget that aligns with you. We always ask every guest this question, and I saw the note, so I'm excited to ask it to you. Why do you love sales?
uh, um, yeah, I guess I don't love sales. No, no.
It depends on the
I
quarter, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I actually really do love sales. And it's not why I thought that I would enjoy sales when I first took a role as a BDR. That's completely changed.
Yeah.
Some of it's the same. I love the unlimited earning potential. I love the opportunity for personal growth. I love the idea that the harder I work and the better I am at something, the more money I make. And it's changed a little bit as I've transitioned into leadership. That was more of an individual contributor mindset. Now, as a manager, I love that for other people. I love being able to give feedback and watching somebody implement it on a call in real time and it works and they're like fired up about it. I really enjoy that piece. I love the coaching aspect. Um, Anything
It
else on here that I
no,
missed?
I well, we have a final question. I want to dig in though there on like I think you don't quite realize when you're first getting into it how much like sales leadership really aligns with like I grew up, my father was a coach, so I always wanted to be a coach. I always saw like how rewarding it was and how much of an impact he had on the kids. Like he coached high school hockey for like 30 plus years and like changed people's lives. You don't really think like you're going to get that type of opportunity in a profession. But then like I remember my first sales leadership job, like immediately I was like, "Oh my god, like I'm a coach. Like this is awesome. Like I get to help these people shape their futures in a way that like you get all that stuff you talked about, unlimited earning potential. It's a meritocracy. So like, you know, the harder you work, the more money you're going to make. But like then when if you want to go that leadership path, you're going to get a lot of the rewards that you might have thought you would get taking the sports route. You know what I mean?
Never thought about that, but it's so true. Because I still think about my high school hockey coach. I still think about lessons I've learned from my college baseball coach.
Totally.
Um, it's a really interesting thought process, and those dots have never connected for me.
Yeah. 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 Well, you're a coach now. You just make more money than they do. um, so this is our final question, buddy. We ask everybody this question, and you've already actually used the terminology, which I love. But whenever I talk about like a high performer, whether it's someone who's worked for me or I've worked with or even competed against, I'll say like, man, that guy, that girl is dialed in, right? And I think it's like the best thing you can say about a sales pro. And honestly, it's the reason we focus on athletes and veterans because we don't have to explain necessarily what it means to get dialed in generically, like at a high level. But the question is, what does it mean to be dialed in as a sales pro for you?
It's when you you take everything that you've implemented from the week before and you're on a call and you're just laser focused on the task at hand and everything's just hitting. Your talk tracks are perfect. Um, your objection handling is great, but it's really like forgetting. You talked about swing thoughts in golf, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's a singular focus. It's one swing thought. It's not like, hey, what am I doing with my hands here? What am I doing with my elbow here? It's just like I'm in the moment, laser focused, and handling everything because I'm being an athlete. Um, that's the way that I think about being dialed in, and I think it does go back to the mechanics of this is the way that we were built. This is the way that we were trained our whole lives. Is we practice for the game and we're dialed in at the game. So on a demo, on a quote review, on a closing call, we're dialed in. Now's the time to perform.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome, man. Tad, this was an awesome conversation, buddy. I know you're super busy. It's a Friday afternoon. We're standing between you and the weekend. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for the awesome content for our audience and especially the all the candidates we work. We work with a lot of baseball players and hockey players and this is really going to resonate with them. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I really love what you're doing there. I know a few people who have worked with you, and they all have great things to say about you. Not only you personally, but also Shift Group and the training and everything you're doing. Something that I really, really respect, and I'd love to help in any way I can. I think being on a podcast is one small piece, but let me know if there's anything else I can do because I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man, and I built it because I wish it was there for guys like me and you when we got out. So and the girls that get out of sports and service too. So I appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you.
Cool.
This wraps up this episode of Merchants of Change. If you enjoyed this episode, the most meaningful way to say thanks is to submit a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're interested in working with us, please come find us at www.shiftgroup.io.